This meeting is being recorded.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to another episode on the Speak Sense podcast with me, Usama Musa at Muslim Amir. And today I have somebody who I've been wanting to get on here for a long time, mainly because of his sense of humor. But he is just a normal guy from Manchester who happens to have a business in accounting and supporting small to medium-sized businesses with their tax and other accounting services. So it's an absolute honor to have him here today with me. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Adnan. Woo! Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for having me on. When I gave you that intro, I was kind of joking. I thought you'd give me something better than that, but I'll take it. That's what I see myself as. Alhamdulillah, I'm just an ordinary guy who just happens to have his own business.
That's why we asked the question, bro. Alhamdulillah. Honestly, it's amazing to have you with me here today, and I can't wait to actually dig into your journey and what sort of challenges you've had, what achievements you've had. But first of all, Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
So I agreed to come on this podcast. I thought it's useful just to try and just get a bit of advice out there, get a few words out there, because I do get a lot of people messaging me. There's a lot of people, especially the Muslims, young people who want to open up their own business, whether that's in accounting or anything else, and they always ask me the same question. So when you asked me to come on this podcast, I thought, great, it'll give me some sort of platform to be able to voice what I've done, the challenges I've had, the setbacks I've had, just so that next time someone messages me and asks, can you tell me X, Y, and Z, I'll just point them in the direction of this podcast. But no, alhamdulillah, so I'm 30 now, feels like I just started yesterday, but no, it's been a while. So I started at Ernst & Young, which, one of the big four, which, most people in finance will have heard of. Alhamdulillah, it's a big company, a big opportunity. And people ask me to this day, like, how the hell did you manage to get into EY? Not because of me, just because there's a lot of applicants. I think in the year I applied, there's something like 65,000. And I'd say to this day, I don't know how I did it. A lot of du'as go into it, a lot of, just do your best, and, Allah provides. I somehow got through the tests, somehow got through the assessment centers. They must have liked my personality. I cracked a few jokes on the assessment center day, so maybe that worked in my favor. Alhamdulillah, I got in, and I'd say that was quite a big moment. It kind of sets your career up from the very top. And I worked there 3 years. I did audit where I had clients like I had McDonald's, Slater and Gordon, AMEC, Foster Wheeler. These are massive multi-billion-pound companies. And what I always found though is because you were very high up, very in the 25th, 30th floor of tall skyscrapers. And you never really got to feel much on the ground, what proper finance really. So once I qualified, I qualified after 3 years, and then I left and went to work for. So the travel minister in Saudi Arabia had purchased a travel company in the UK. It used to be Co-op Travel, and he rebranded it to Mawasem Travel, and that was called Clarity Travel in the UK. So I went to work for them. Much smaller business, turnover was around 200 to 400 million. They did a few acquisitions, so I got to work on the ground there. Left there, got to work for the co-op, and then whilst I was working at the co-op, it was kind of COVID time. I had a lot of people messaging me saying, you're an accountant, can you help us out? My accountants disappeared. And if there's any accountants watching this, or if anyone knows any corporate accountants, they can kind of relate in that when you're in the corporate world, you can't just help anyone. You can't submit a tax return, you can't do accounts, because you're used to seeing millions and billions of numbers on spreadsheets, on P&Ls, balance sheets, etc. You're not used to doing small tax returns. So it does kind of make you feel a bit useless in that. It's like being a doctor but not be able to diagnose, your cousin or your friend. But so I had a lot of people reaching out to me saying, COVID's come, there's government grants, there's, tax returns I have to do, but my accountants disappeared. And so I set up to help one person. I thought if I'm going to help him, I'll get my indemnity, I'll get my practicing certificate. And then it went to helping 2 people and 5 people and 10 people. And then them 10 people told another 10 people. And alhamdulillah, I just snowballed from there, and then to a point where I realized I was doing more in the evenings on my own business than I was during the day at the co-op. And so I just decided to go at it full time. It wasn't always smooth sailing. I got a lot of people messaging me saying, brother, how did you do it? We want to be as successful as you are. Like, brother, there's no success here. There's just hard work. But I did a few contracts on the way when I wasn't turning over as much. Did a bits and bobs, and then it reached a point where I replaced my salary, and I've been doing it full time for the past year or so, and it's going from strength to strength.
Allahumma zid wa barik, bro. Allahumma zid wa barik. That's an amazing story, mashallah. And your personality was definitely the reason that you got the job in the first place. I think it's your personality that got you on this podcast too, mashallah. And I think just from that small introduction about where you were and you saying you sized down to companies that were doing turnover of 200 to 400 million. That a lot of people's like, wow, like that's huge numbers. And to you, that was sizing down. So imagine when you had to go to, self-employed people looking to do tax returns or,
Yeah, that was a big step down.
So subhanallah, that must have been, quite a challenge actually, mentally, because obviously you're going from, seeing huge and, I can't even imagine the size of these P&Ls that, a company like McDonald's has to, tax return at the end of the year for them must be crazy. The amount of spreadsheets you're looking at to then just looking at, 1 or 2 sheets or 5 sheets or even 10 sheets. It must have been, like you said, it must have been quite challenging. But what I want to do first and foremost, before we reach, the Adnan that's, alhamdulillah with IFS accounting at the moment. And just to be clear, I didn't mention it in the intro, IFS accounting is Adnan's accountancy firm up in Manchester, where he's doing amazing things for his clients, alhamdulillah. But what I wanted to say is, let's take it back to young Adnan in, was it Oldham? You grew up in Oldham?
Yeah,
Oldham. What was it like growing up as a young Muslim in your childhood in the West?
I'd say it's interesting because the challenges we faced then are similar to the challenges we face now, just with a different face. So where I grew up in Oldham, it was I grew up in an area called Glodwick. It was very, very rough. Like if anyone ever knows much about Oldham or Great Manchester, there was like race riots in 2001, with like riot police and petrol bombs and far right coming up and doing like rallies in Oldham and stuff. And so it was quite rough. Like you'd grow up, like we grew up playing football in the local streets, like down at the local pitch. And you'd be playing football, and then like the local drug dealers would walk in and just launch our ball into like a back alley somewhere and be like, we're playing now, we're taking over. And then you'd just go and play in a back alley somewhere. And then you'd get this guy's fighting this guy. Like it was a very typical, Pakistani area. Like you get Bradford, Luton, Leicester, Birmingham. Like, it's the same everywhere. And it was quite rough. But then the challenges I faced, that my parents put me into a private school, alhamdulillah, it's a blessing in itself. But it was going from the streets of Glodwick, where everyone spoke with slang and how's it going, bro, and yeah, chilling, blah, 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 that kind of thing, to being sat with people whose parents were, multimillionaires, having to wear a cap and shorts, having to speak properly, to the point where I think in the first few months when I joined, my teacher said to me, look, the way you speak isn't right. So she made me sit down with her at lunchtime and she'd give me like lessons on how to pronounce words, stuff like this word isn't really a word. Like a lot of Pakistanis, we call people like, oh, it's my cousin brother. And she was like, there's no such thing as a cousin brother. He's either your brother or he's your cousin. Like, and that for me was like mind blowing. Like, no, he's my cousin brother. Like, get it twisted.
You know what's funny with that one? I have my friend who's Bengali, and he always says like my cousin sister and he explained it to me. So I was like, bro, can we just like pause? Like,
yeah.
And he was like, what I mean is it's my female cousin. But we don't say like male or female for Bengalis. They will say like my cousin, sister, meaning my female cousin. So I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's it. Then there are so many words or phrases like that we use that we don't really know because we're cocooned in this Asian area where the butcher's halal, the groceries are, raw Pakistani type of groceries. Like, I don't even know the name for half the vegetables in English. Like, even to this day, like sometimes like my mom would tell me to go get something and I'd be like, well, what's that in English? Like, I'm not going to go to some English grocer and pull out some Pakistani words, but like it was very segregated. Like I had this Pakistani side to me that was in Oldham, and then I had this trying to be white side and trying to fit into a private school. And then like I grew up thinking like Santa Claus was a racist. Like I was like, he's going to Tom's house, he's going to Alex's house, he's going to Steve's house. How does he know which one's my house? Like, this racist Santa Claus that's just not popping into Oldham and stuff. But it was a challenge. But I'd say the challenges we had then were very different to the challenges we have now. Like I've got, alhamdulillah, I've got 2 kids, I've got nieces and nephews.
MashaAllah.
And for us, it was very what's on the surface. So like if you went to school and someone called you a Paki or something, or someone questioned your religion, like you can face that in front of you. Whereas today you get kids on internet or on social media where, racism directly on social media isn't really the problem. It's getting the mixed messages. Like you don't know what they're taking in. You don't know who they're following, who they're listening to. Like the other day, like even like on a small example, like I had my nephew on Eid, I think just this past Eid a few months ago, and he was like, I was like, well, what do you want for Eid? Expecting him to tell like money, toys, and he's like, I want candy. And it's like, where did this American accent come from? Like, if they're speaking like people they see on YouTube, they're gonna start acting like people they see on YouTube. And these are challenges that, as a young parent, you've got to be wary of. And I think that the challenges that young Muslims face now and going forward will be very different to the ones that me and you face. Like I think you're same age as me. It's something that we need to be wary of. But our parents couldn't really relate to the stuff that we faced. They were from, in your case, Palestine or Pakistan, and in my case, Pakistan. In that they couldn't relate to when we were sat on MSN when we were 16, or when we made a Facebook account or Twitter and Instagram and all sorts of stuff. But we can, there's no limits or barriers to us learning the technology that our kids will be doing, VR and Meta and all this kind of stuff. So I think that's something we've got to brace ourselves for. The past is by no indication of what's going to happen in the future with our kids. I know this is a bit deeper than, what we expected probably here, but that's the stuff that goes on in my head.
No, I love it, bro. This is the point of us having these type of conversations, and for me having this podcast in particular for Muslim audience with Muslims, because we as Muslims are going to go through all these challenges together. And I think it's like you said that our parents don't end up having or didn't end up going through what we went through when we were growing up, so that was a challenge for them. Also, they had that language barrier maybe for a lot of our parents, the cultural barrier. But I think for us, what makes it challenging for us is we haven't had a generation of parents that were raised at the beginning of technology, so our generation, that are now having children that they're raising. So we don't have any, let's say, playbooks where like we know this stuff works with children for the consumption of TV or YouTube or being on the phone. We're also challenged with, in our generation, we were still outdoors more than we were indoors on technology.
Yeah.
Whereas our children now, I mean, I sit with my younger siblings, they don't want to leave the house half the time. When I was a kid,
definitely.
I couldn't wait for my dad to say, you can go to the park. I'll turn off Cartoon Network like that and run out. And then when I'm home and I can't be outside, then it's like Cartoon Network. But if I had the choice, it was always outside, then inside.
That's it.
So
that's it. Like any chance we'd get up until Maghrib time, until the sun sets, we're down at the local football pitch, and you're doing God knows what. You're climbing trees, you're making a dent somewhere, you're doing silly stuff. As nowadays, like this is on Minecraft all the time and Call of Duty and all this kind of stuff.
And I think as Muslims, that's one of our biggest challenges. And then, like, there was always this big debate when Meta first came out with the, what did they call it? The metaverse. Where, a lot of people were like, is it halal? Is it not? Selling the art, I forgot what it's called now. A lot of people
NFTs.
The NFTs, that's it. A lot of people doing the NFTs, and they were like, well, is that halal or not? So then, we're in an era now where I think it's quite challenging for us as young Muslim parents. And I think we'll learn from our mistakes, and I guess we'll be able to teach the future generations what not to do. But we're gonna have to learn. We're gonna have to learn the tough way. Speaking of young, old generations, what was your sort of aspiration when you were younger? What did you want to be when you were older? Like when you were, I don't know, 8 years old, looking outside the window at primary school, or when you were at secondary school, kicking the ball in football pitch. Did you have a goal of what you wanted to be when you were older?
Well, the thing is, alhamdulillah, I was blessed in that I was lucky to be enough to be able to choose. Like with a lot of people, especially Muslims, Pakistanis especially, like you've got to be a doctor or a dentist, and that's kind of drilled into you from a very young age. Your parents tell you, Putra, you got to be a doctor. I want you to be a dentist. I want you to be a pharmacist. I want you to be an engineer. I didn't have none of that because my dad took takeaways. The only thing he placed emphasis on was education. Like he never said you have to be this or you have to be that. He just said be educated and be a good person. From there you can do what you want, because as long as you're a good person, you'll make the best out of any career. So but for me, I've always been into money, not in like I want money and a hoarding kind of way, but in that money makes sense. Numbers always make sense. Like everything you see on LinkedIn, everything you see in business, everything you see anywhere, ultimately the true story is money. Like if someone can tell you I'm turning over a 6-figure per month business and I've done that in 3 months, like you get a lot of that on LinkedIn. But when you speak to them and you get behind them, you realize that the numbers, the only truth in there, like marketing is a lot of boasts, IT I don't really understand, but finance, it's a picture, it's a clear picture. How much money you make, how much cost you have, where you're being wasteful, where you're being good, where you're being bad. There's no lying in numbers. There's no hiding. There's a bit of dodgy accounting you can do, but once you see someone's numbers, you know how good they're doing, how bad they're doing, what kind of lifestyle they're living, what kind of promotions they're pushing. Everything comes through in the numbers. And so for me, that was always something that I inspired to go towards. Like even from a young age, like me and my brother would sit around and we'd be like, right, a PlayStation 1 costs £300. I've got £50 from Eid. You've made £50 from Eid. Your birthday, you'll get 60 quid. Last month, like we'd always be planning, what we're going to spend our Eid money on, what we're going to spend our birthday money on, and that kind of fixed rigidity in terms of finances went into me in the future. And I always found business and finance and economics interesting, and so it was only one thing I was going to go down towards. And even when I qualified as an accountant, like a lot of my friends, who qualified with me, some of them went into corporate finance, some of them went into tax, and they'd always said to me, like, you actually enjoy accounting, which not a lot of people do, not even accountants do. I've got clients who are accountants who don't want to do accounting, and so they said to me, you enjoy it, why don't you start up your own practice? And I'd say, like, the most boring thing I could think of is being sat there and doing a taxi driver's account, so doing like typical Pakistani business accounts. Like it just seems very boring. And at that point, the reason I didn't open up was because I thought, who's going to come to me? Like, who's going to come to, a Pakistani guy in Oldham whose family have no, like, I'd speak to people and the guy would be like, oh, my dad owns this warehousing business and my dad sold this business and my dad's a consultant, X, Y, and Z. And my dad introduced me to the founder of this and he's doing a seed capital raise. And I'd be like, my dad just works in takeaways. My uncles do taxis. Like, I come from a very ordinary background. So I thought, I haven't got them uncles who are going to make connections and that dad who knows all the directors and stuff. So that put me off. But, alhamdulillah, I opened up. My caliber of experience from EY onwards kind of helped in that no matter what kind of business comes up to me, I can help them. Like I'm not limited like a lot of other accountants who have worked at your local, firm and then qualified and only seen that small stuff. I've alhamdulillah, I've seen big stuff. So that's kind of what set me apart, and my LinkedIn gibberish, just plotting away with them statuses. But no, I've never had a predefined, I want to do my business, but I always knew I wanted to be an accountant. I always loved numbers and finance.
Yeah, and I think you hit a very important point where you said from a young age, your brothers, you and your brother would plan. I think that's very important. And that sets you up. It's these small little things that occur in our lives. Even like you said, being put in a private school, for example, and being in that environment, maybe that in itself did something to you subconsciously. It helped you with your limiting beliefs, helped you with your language, maybe just the way you think, the way you talk, the way you positioned yourself. So when you did go for that interview with for the job, like you said, the first job, maybe that in itself, without you realizing, had a part to play in the way that you approached it, the way that you spoke, the way that you were, maybe your body language. Because like you said, or not even just like you said, but it's common fact. What happens with rich kids more time than not? They might not be the smartest in the room. They might not be the most skilled. They might not be just the best. But what they do have is they have natural habits, and their limiting beliefs are not the same as someone that comes from a poorer background. So, like you said, when you went into the school, you said it yourself. You were like, my dad's just got a takeaway, right? In within itself, that might have been a limiting belief. Whereas someone whose dad's a multimillionaire, he doesn't know what that limiting belief is, and success to him is just natural. So he would just be naturally successful because of his environment, obviously had a part to play. So I think that is a very crucial point to remember. And I think, like you said, I think your parents did exceptionally well to raise you in knowing to just be educated and being good. I think adding that pressure on a child of you have to be a doctor, you have to do this, you have to do that is not right. And you should
Yeah,
always
very common though, very common.
very common, very common. I think, alhamdulillah, obviously, I didn't go through that with my parents. My mum's a parenting coach, so I guess that helps. But um, I've seen it with a lot of my friends, and Arabs tend to be engineering, doctors, and
Yeah, yeah,
the Asians tend to be, doctors, lawyers, accountants.
that's it.
They
Yeah.
all the parents have like their thing that they like to focus on. But speaking of business, bro, because I'm really interested to know about IFS accounting, and not IFS within like as in a business. I want to know about Adnan and what has been your biggest achievement so far as a business owner.
I'd say it's not really, I've not really achieved one big thing. It's more the culmination of events that have got me to the place where I am. Like I'd say, Alhamdulillah, I'm very happy with where I am. And I always say happiness isn't a moment or when you bought that new car, when you've got that new deal. It's contentment. If you've got nothing to complain about, nothing to worry about, and for me, that's the biggest happiness you can have. Like Alhamdulillah, I have time for my family, I have time for my hobbies, I have time for business, and financially I'm secure, alhamdulillah, for my business. So I'd say for me that's the biggest achievement is reaching where I am. Whether that was initially getting through uni, getting to, my chartered accountancy exams are very, very difficult. Like a lot of people, an accounting degree is 3 years, a medicine degree is 5 years, plus 1 year when they do the doctor training, their junior year. But a lot of people say, it's a lot harder being a doctor or a dentist than it is an accountant because you only do 3 years. What they don't factor in is when you finish your accounting degree, a lot of people say, I'm an accountant. It's like, no, you're not. You're just a graduate. Like, you're not an accountant by doing an accounting degree. You need to do your CA. And that is over the course of 3 years. You do something like 10 or 15 exams, you have a case study to do. And then at the end of it, you need to have a certain amount of hours clocked up. But the reason I said that was difficult, not because the exams are hard, which they are. The exams are 5 hours each, and you have to do 4 of them across 4 days. But the hardest part was in the hardest bunch of exams, it was actually going through Ramadan at the same time. So, and it wasn't the easy winter fasts. I mean, these were slap bang in the middle of July and August, where you were eating at like 10 o'clock at night and stopped eating at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was like you kind of go to college at 8 o'clock in the morning. You'd be just have this knowledge, corporate finance, accounting, tax, just drilled into your head for about 10 hours in the day. And then they'd say to you, go home and revise for another 2 hours, but you're knackered. Like you'd be going to sleep at 2 o'clock because you were fasting. At lunch, I'd just go to sleep. I'd come home, look at the questions I was supposed to be answering, which I was supposed to be doing for 2 hours, read the answer for 5 minutes and just go to sleep because, it's taking this toll on you. And then I think just after Eid were the exams. So it was a very difficult time. And I think I lost so much weight. I was really struggling. Like my family afterwards had to, tell me to take a month off work. I ate normal, I exercised normal. Physically, it took its toll on me. And then, from one job to another, to the point where I've opened up my business, got this credibility. I speak to people. I'm not nervous. I'm not thinking, what if they catch me out because I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm confident in my abilities due to everything that I've gone through. And so I'd say, like I said at the start of this question, like it's not that I did this one thing that I absolutely smashed. It's that consistency and that desire to get where I am at the moment, and the fact that I've reached here. Again, it's not because I'm massively successful. Like I'm not. Like it's just me sat in this office. I've not got like 10 staff members, but it's reached a point where I'd say I'm out of the rat race. I'm happy, and alhamdulillah, I've got time for hobbies, family, work. I'm my own boss, and that's due to consistent hard work over about 10 years.
MashaAllah, bro. Consistency always wins the race. Alhamdulillah.
Always.
And I think, um, just being a business owner myself and knowing the challenges that, one has to go through. The fact that you, as you just said, that, you're out of the rat race, MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, may Allah put barakah in your business to continue to bless you, Ya Rab. That in itself is a great achievement. And I think, like you said, all the small wins and the small actions that have brought you to where you are today is a big blessing. Now, what has been the biggest lesson in your business sort of journey or your personal life, if you wanna talk about that maybe? But what has been the biggest lesson?
Biggest lesson. I'm blessed in that I've not had many difficult encounters in life. But what I'd say to people, anyone that's watching this, either if they're watching this, probably most likely going to be Muslim or Pakistani or Asian or whatever. One thing I'd say is Muslims and Asian people, in my experience, I don't like to stereotype, are not great with business in the sense, they're not bad at making money, but they're not very formal. It's very much just sort it out, bro. It's okay. We'll do it. We'll deal with it. Come on, It's very much you just trust them. Because the reason I set up my business innately was to help young Muslims up and coming in business, rather than having to go to your old Uncle G accountants or your dad's mate who is known for 30 years. Because to have that young accountant you can relate to. And so I always had a soft spot for up and coming Muslim businessmen. And what I'd find is, like, I'd always say, okay, so this is the work that needs doing. And we wouldn't talk about price. Or if we didn't talk about price, and if we did, they'd kind of be like, oh, come on, bro, sort it out. And then I'd be like, okay, this is the price then. And then we'd agree on it. And then we'd go and do the work. And then I'd be like, okay, here's my invoice. They'd be like, yeah, chill, I'll sort it. And then I'd be like, okay, I'll sort it. Oh, don't worry, when this happens, I'll do it. When that happens, I'll do it. And they just take the mick just because I wouldn't worry too much about formalization and sending a contract. Because I think I know him, or he seems like a decent guy. I wouldn't really formalize the relationship. I think maybe that was a mistake on my part, being too trusting or having that soft spot for Pakistanis or Muslims, that you'd always get taken advantage of then, because it'd be like once my refund comes in, I'll pay you then, or once I've made the sale, I'll pay you then. It's kind of like if you went to a white accountant, or you went to a Jewish company, or you went to a black or a Chinese person, you'd pay them, right? You don't go into Next and say, oh, once I've worn the suit to my uncle's wedding, I'll pay you then. Like, you just wouldn't do it. But then when it's Adnan from Manchester who you've been chatting to and he's give you some genuine advice for free, you kind of think, oh, it's all right, it's only him, I pay him. So then since my first few bad experiences, I've kind of learned to suss people out. Kind of, is this kind of person that's gonna just take the mick and is just with me because I'm a Pakistani and he thinks he can get away with it, or is this the kind of person that I can genuinely work with? And alhamdulillah, I've got a lot of my clients. A lot of my clients are Muslim, and for that reason, that they think they can be a bit more comfortable with telling me what's really happening, rather than putting up a bit of a face. But I always formalize relationships now, especially in business. Always get a contract, an engagement letter, something detailed, signed and written, so that it's not just very much like, oh, we're both Muslim, we just work together. You need that formal relationship in business, because Muslim or no Muslim, people always look after themselves. And if that's to your detriment, then they don't really care.
I completely agree with that, and I think I've done the same mistake myself, and I learned from it, because without contracts, it's very difficult, bro. It's very, and subhanallah, our deen is it tells us to write contracts. The Prophet, I think there's even Quranic verses, which I don't know off the top of my head, that speak about contracts. There's always, as Muslims, we've always been advised to work with contracts. It's very important. And as a business, anybody who's watching this who is a business, you have to definitely read your contracts that you receive carefully. For example, I had a client just this morning, actually. I sent over their contract. They wanted to pay in installments. Obviously, the installment fee differs to the fee in advance. And then they came back to me saying, I didn't realize because when they received the invoice, obviously it wasn't what they'd expected.
Yeah.
I said, just review the contract. And they looked at the
contract. That's it. At least you've got it written. There's no doubt.
And then, from there, I can then decide whether I want to give them the price that they thought, or whether I want to stick to the contract. But the point is, they then were made aware, without me having to be in that awkward position of, you told me, oh, you don't remember, no, you said no, the contract's there, you saw it, that's your mistake. So that's very, very important. But again, I think one of the things that us Muslims, please Muslims, if you're watching this, try and be professional and formal in your business transactions. One of the things that we're trying to do at Muslim Amir is break that stereotype. The stereotype does exist. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but
Yeah.
I think there's a new generation of Muslims, especially business Muslims in business, and I think we all do things properly. And I think it's very important. And inshallah, brother Adnan thinks that I'm a guy that he would do business with if I needed his services.
Definitely, definitely.
I'm not one of those guys that's like, hey, bro, I'll do it later.
Yeah, don't need an agreement between us.
Okay, bro. So, mashallah, I want to know, like, if you could sit down with Adnan in your office now, and Adnan was 20 years old, what would be one advice you would give him?
I'd say at 20, I was a proper stress head. I was trying to plan everything, trying to be very, detailed in that. If I do this, this will happen. Like, it was very cause and event. If I do this, this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. And I always tried planning everything. As they say, in our religion, we plan, but he's the best of planners, right? Like, we could plan everything, but it might not work out. And so at that point, I think, like, if I get this job, I'll work this many hours, I'll get this promotion, and then I'll be on this much money, and then I can save this much, invest this much. I was very detailed and planning. But I'd say since my co-op days, which is probably at the age of 28, which is only 2 or 3 years ago, like, I've realized the less you plan, the better. No, I'm not saying don't plan at all, but in my life, my own personal experience, the less you plan and you just go with it and make the most of opportunities, the better the outcome is likely to be. Like, when I started my accountancy practice, I didn't think, if I start this business, I'll be turning over X, Y, and Z. I just thought, let's just do it and see how it goes. And then it kind of went from strength to strength, and then opportunities came up in the way that if I was in employment, I wouldn't have been able to take. Like, I mean, these are opportunities that financially were amazing for me. And, I never would have got them if I stayed in work and I continued this plan of, well, I want to be manager, then senior manager, then director, because it's a very limiting belief. You're kind of, you're judging yourself based on other people's views of you. Does your manager think you're good enough for promotion? Does the director think you're good enough to be a senior manager, etc.? Whereas if you kind of just think, okay, I'll do my best and then just see how things go. It's like one of my favorite hadiths is where the Prophet was with that Bedouin man, and he said, he just left his camel outside, and the Prophet said to him, what are you doing? And he was like, I have faith in Allah. But the Prophet was like, tie your camel, then have faith in Allah, And so I said the biggest thing is tie your camel, like, do your best, and then just see what happens, rather than stressing, thinking, I want the promotion in February 2023, and then if it doesn't happen, you're annoyed with yourself, you're kicking yourself, and in some places you've got to wait a full year to the next promotion cycle. So do your best, see what opportunities come up, and then if the right one comes up at the right time, take it. But don't worry about where you're going to be in 5 years, 10 years time. Like, I don't know what business is going to be doing in a month, in a year. I'm just taking it as it goes. And alhamdulillah, I found that that's the best way, because you can stress about things, but stressing and worrying and getting anxiety about what's going to happen in the future isn't going to change it. You're not having no tangible benefit. Unless your anxiety and stress leads you to go to the gym, or it leads you to put out some leaflets or vouchers for your business or do some Google ads, then there's no point to it. So my biggest advice is don't worry, take things as they come, and inshallah, you'll be in a better place without having to worry about things. That's what I tell myself as well.
I think that's super important. I think, obviously I'm an advocate for planning. I say, if you as the saying says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. But there's a key point I think people misunderstand with planning. And not, I think I agree with you. I'm somebody who's a free spirit as well. So I just take every day as it comes. What I find the power in planning is it just gets your mind thinking and achieves clarity. So when I put a plan in place, my plans are always amendable. It's not just this is the way it has to be. You get it? I put it there as a first thought, maybe. I come back to it a week later. Okay, no, I tried this, didn't work. I'm going to change this. I want to do this, because it just gives me that direction. So it's like a navigation. It's like a sat nav.
Yeah.
So
it's like a path that you're going to take, right?
Yeah, it's like, for example, if you were to just open your practice, you must have had some form of planning in terms of who do I want to serve, what kind of.
Oh yeah, there's planning on how to execute things.
Yes.
There's planning on how to execute things, or how to reach a desired goal. So if you think in 3 years' time I want to be here, and you want to plan how you get there, but say don't fixate yourself on this is how my life needs to go, and this is my definition of success. If I don't achieve this in 5 years, I've messed up, or if I don't get this promotion, I've messed up.
Exactly
You
that.
know, have a plan, have an idea of what you want to get to, but just don't worry and stress about it. You know, take things as they come.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I just wanted to clarify that to the audience, because sometimes things can be misunderstood or misinterpreted. And I think that is super important. And I think, subhanAllah, things come out in life, unexpected as well. So, if you're somebody that's too fixated on planning and, oh my God, this doesn't, I didn't plan for that. I didn't want this to happen now. You've changed everything now. I'm not. People are like that. If you come and interrupt what they were fixated on, they just lose all type of composure, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know what to do now. So I think, we have to have a balance, and Allah created us, ummatun wasata, a balanced nation. So we should, as Muslims, always strive for that. And inshallah, I think this sets us up for the next question pretty nicely, actually. I want to know what's like a super important business tip that you have, or maybe a business, let's say, value that you have that's super important for you, or a business tip that you'd like to share with us that's super important for Adnan?
Well, I kind of touched on this as soon as we started on the interview. Like, I get a lot of people messaging me saying, how did you open up your business? How did you open up your accountancy practice? I give them all the same answer. I think that answer will be quite applicable here. A lot of the people I get messaging me about opening up an accountancy practice are very young. I mean, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. They've just started their career. And their first thought is, I want my own business. And the reason they say that is they look at, wherever they're working, they look at the owners, the partners, the directors, and they think, that's where I want to be. This is, why am I working? And it's a very Pakistani mindset. It's very, maybe it's an Arab thing as well, but, why am I working for this guy on 20K when I'm billing 50K worth of work and he's making 30K off me? We hate that inferiority, in the sense that, why am I a junior? I should be a manager here. I could open up my own practice. But a lot of people jump the gun. And whether this is in accounting or you want to open up any business, you need to know what you're doing, and you need to build up a certain level of experience. Like, I'm sure you didn't work in a warehouse for 9 years and then in the 10th think, I'm going to open up Muslim Amir and give people coaching and advice. Like, no one wakes up with the knowledge. No one gains knowledge in a week, a month, a year, maybe even. Like, I always say to people, I worked at EY for 3 years. I worked at Clarity for 3 years. I worked at Co-op for a year, and then I worked in contracting for a year. Like, that's 8 years worth of experience on top of a 3 years degree. And I wouldn't go to uni, do an accounting degree, and then open up an accountancy practice. Like, I get a lot of people who are first year into a big 4 company. So alhamdulillah, they've managed to get themselves a good job. And they're like, yeah, but I don't enjoy this job. I want to open up my own practice. I was like, yeah, but learn first. Learn how to deal with small companies, big companies, complicated companies, easy companies, manufacturing companies, service companies. Like, there's a lot for you to learn before you can go out and do your own thing. But we kind of have an idea that, we learn a bit and we think we know everything. Like, it's like that theory, which the name of it escapes my head, but the graph of knowledge compared to how much, like, your confidence compared to knowledge goes straight up and you learn a bit, and then it goes down because you realize I don't actually know much, and then you learn more, and then your knowledge goes up. Open up a business when you're at that point where you've actually learned everything, where you realize I don't know much, and then you've acquired the knowledge to know much, as opposed to when you've learned a bit and you think you're the sheikh on it now, like, you've got all the knowledge that you need to know. Like when you're giving out like advice on fiqh and akida and everything after attending one lesson. But like, it's the same whether you open up a poultry farm, like, learn about chickens, man. Go work in someone else's poultry farm for 3 years. If you want to open up a takeaway, go work for someone. You want to open up a shop, go do retail for a bit. Like, embed yourself in that industry. Learn from someone with more knowledge for years and years and years. Don't see it as he's paying me a crappy 20K wage. Like, he's paying you a 20K wage, plus he's giving you knowledge that's priceless. Like, we kind of limit ourselves thinking, what financial or what monetary value am I getting from this? We need to think beyond that. We need to think, my accountancy practice wouldn't be where it is today if I did it after 1 year at EY. I didn't have half, not even a tenth of the knowledge I have now. But by doing everything I've did, I've accumulated it. I reached a point where I thought, now is a good time, as opposed to forcing that and opening it and then crashing and burning. So, I'd say have patience, learn, and then go into business, as opposed to, just waking up one morning and saying, I'm going to go into this because my friend's making loads of money from it. I'd say that's a very underrated piece of advice.
And I think it's super important. And actually, the saying that you said, subhanAllah, is so true. I mean, they say that it's like you said, it's 3 stages, of knowledge. Where at the beginning, you learn something and you're like, I know everything, and then the second stage, you're like, I know I don't know, I don't know anything at all. Oh no, sorry. There's a middle stage where you're like, I'm drowning a little bit here, and then the last stage is as much knowledge as I have, and the third stage where you have a lot of knowledge, and you say, as much
Yeah.
knowledge as I have, I actually know nothing. I still know
Yeah.
nothing. SubhanAllah, and that's the wisdom that comes with it. And I think I even saw one of your posts the other day. Just I remembered it now when you said that, where you spoke, and it resonated when you said the numbers earlier, where numbers don't lie, and you put out a post where you're like, if somebody says that they're making this amount of money, go and check them on the company's house and make sure that what they're saying.
Yeah.
And I just I think is very true. And I think also for anybody that's looking to start a business, I mean, young guys that are hungry. I mean, I was there. I've been trying to be an entrepreneur and a business owner for the last 12, 14 years. And honestly speaking, go and get the experience. Go get that experience. Go get that experience. I can't advise that enough, because even me myself, after 12, 14 years of trying and building myself up, I've only been able to get to this stage now because of the amount of mistakes I made. But I could have easily avoided all of these mistakes and made myself get to where I am now a lot quicker, had it been with someone there to support me, or if I'd done maybe
Yeah.
3-4 years in my field of work, working for like a big 4 company or a big 6 company or whatever it is, just get that experience. Alhamdulillah, I got managerial experience from 19. I was a manager at 19, working at huge restaurants and doing stuff like that, and have interpersonal skills, interchangeable skills, and transferable skills.
Yeah.
But for anyone starting out, definitely do that, because when I went into the business world, I was super naive. I made so many big mistakes so early on. I guess that's why it was okay. I didn't have any responsibilities. I didn't have any children. I didn't have, it was just me, myself, and I, university.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think that's super important. And another key component to anybody looking to start a business: know your why, understand your why. You have to have a huge why, and understand what pain points you aim to solve. What problems are you solving for your customers? Because if you don't
Yeah.
have your why and you don't have a problem that you solve, you can't really build a business on that. So that is super important. Now, bro, I want to know, obviously, uh, a lot of people that are successful tend to have routines. It's not a fact. It's not something that has to happen. Some people don't have. Sometimes their routine is that they don't have a routine, which is completely fine. So I wanted to know, obviously, you're somebody who likes numbers, you like spreadsheets. So I would assume that you like systems, and you like, having maybe a structure. So what kind of routines do you have, if you have any? Maybe morning.
I'd say my life is very structured, very routine. I recently read a book, Atomic Habits, like a lot of people would have read, and it kind of
Great book.
formalized. Yeah, it's amazing, and it formalized a lot of what I already did, but it kind of taught me to solidify that, in the sense that if you have a routine, a lot of people think people who have a routine are very disciplined and active, but instead it's the opposite. If you have a routine, you can afford to be lazy, because you don't need to think. Your routine is already pressed out in front of you. Like my life is very repetitive and very routine, but it's that repetitiveness and that consistency that gets you anywhere. It's like Bruce Lee said, like, fear not the man who practiced 10,000 kicks once, but who practiced one kick 10,000 times.
Yes.
Like, I could give you my routine. Like, I wake up, I spend time with my kids. My daughter will go nursery. I'll have breakfast, and then I'll get out to work. So I aim to be in for about 9, half 9, sometimes maybe 10 o'clock. But it's very focused around my kids in the morning, because I know when I come back from work, I'm knackered. I don't have the patience. And plus, I always have stuff on in the evenings most of the times. Like Mondays and Thursdays, I have Arabic. Wednesdays, I have football. So Tuesdays and Fridays, I need to squeeze the gym in. And then Saturday, Sunday, I'll squeeze the gym in, and I'll do everything else I'm doing. Like at the moment, I'm looking to open up another business with my brother. So inshallah, I can announce that on LinkedIn in a few weeks. But like, if I didn't have that consistency, if I didn't have Mondays and Thursdays scheduled in Arabic classes, so I don't have to think, I don't have to like pull out a book or open up an app. Like, it's gonna happen. It's the same with football on Wednesday. There's 22 people playing, so I can't cancel and think, oh, I can't be asked today, because you're letting down 21 people. And the same with going to the gym. Like I go to the gym in between when I'm not doing anything else. I go with my brother. So, some days I'll admit I'm lazy sometimes. I said we can't be asked going. But most of the time he's expecting me to go. So that expectation set, the routine set. And so I don't come home think, can I be asked going to the gym today? It's already preset in my head. I go home, I get changed, I go to the gym. My meals are planned around that. If I didn't have that, if I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to do Arabic lessons at some point, I'm going to go to the gym at some point, I'll try playing football this week, it won't happen. Because naturally, as humans, our tendency is to take the most easiest path. And the easiest path, or the path most treaded, is going home, getting changed, getting something to eat, and watching Netflix for a bit. But unless you've pre-programmed yourself that when I get home, I'm going to the gym, or when I get home, today's Arabic, today's football, or today's going to clean the shop up for whatever I'm going to do. Like, if you don't put that in, you've got to be more attentive and put more effort in. You can't afford to be lazy because you've got to think. As I like to think, with the structure of my life, it means I don't need to think. I just follow it robotically. Alhamdulillah, that's brought the biggest gains for me in every aspect. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
No, yeah, subhanallah. And, yeah, I kind of anticipated that. And, but honestly speaking, it makes the most sense. Like you said, going home, getting changed, and going straight to the gym, just even when you don't want to, it's just your routine. And humans are creatures of habits. But and the fact that you read Atomic Habits, I think, it sums that up perfectly well. And anybody that hasn't read it, 100%, I recommend you do read it. It's by James Clear, if I'm not mistaken, his name is. James Clear, Atomic Habits, amazing book. His story in itself is fascinating. Subhanallah. So that's definitely a book I advise all of you to read. Speaking of, habits, and for some people that could be a challenge. What's the most challenging thing that you've had to overcome, or that you're still currently overcoming?
I'd say it does actually link onto the previous question. I'd say the biggest challenge I have is maintaining these standards. Like in my head, I aim to be the best at everything, with my business, with my deen, with my physical, health, with my children. But like I described my week to you, like there is a lot of stuff happening. And so to be able to maintain that without getting burnt out, I'd say is the hardest thing. Like I won't sacrifice. I find it difficult to sacrifice any one of them things. Like I can't slack on my business because I need this business to provide for my family, to maintain a standard of living. I can't slack on my physical health because your health is everything. Like, our bodies are a blessing from Allah. And it's one of the things we will be questioned on. It's the first thing we'll be questioned on. What did you do with the blessings that you were provided with? I believe, I'm a big believer that our body, people service their car more than they service their own body sometimes. Like, they put nice fuel in, they take it to the best garages, but then they eat crap and not train themselves. So I can't let my body down. I need football to relax. Arabic is part of my deen. I need to learn it to be able to understand what I'm praying, when I'm reading the Quran and stuff. So none of them things in individuality that I can slack on. I can't slack on my kids. I can't slack on anything. And so, but in a culmination, in putting them all together, it's quite a lot. It's a lot to go to the gym, play football, do lessons, do business, spend time with your family. And so maintaining them standards. And then I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, Adnan, we've not seen you in months, man. You're too busy for us. Like, you don't chill with us anymore. We don't see you." So then you've got that social side to maintain as well, so you don't get distant from your friends and family. So I'd say maintaining these standards that I set for myself. I'm not trying to boast. I'm not saying, my standards are compared to anyone else's. I'm stronger than anyone. My business is successful. I don't compare myself to other people. I compare myself to myself yesterday or a week ago or a month or a year ago. And so maintaining this going forward in life rather than backwards in every aspect, I'd say is the hardest thing. And it's, it challenges you on many levels, mentally, spiritually, physically. And so I'd say my challenge, which has probably been the theme for a lot of my stuff, isn't, one specific one. It's generally across a wide plethora of things.
MashaAllah, bro. I think, standards are important. And I think the reason why standards are important, and, I actually posted about this the other day, where, last Friday, for example, I usually take Fridays off. I didn't take Friday off. And that's a standard I set myself. It's something that I just, every week, I know Friday I'm off. I've just switched off. The fact that I went back in on a Friday and tried to work, I was very unproductive. So I actually wasted my day, not relaxing, and I didn't produce any good, valuable work. So it was just a waste of a day, really. And maintaining that standard for me to be able to keep that standard of work up, I need to have those rest days. And it's the same thing for you. For you to keep that standard of, you know, your activities and your productivity, because that's the way you're programmed as well. Let's not forget that. You're set up as Adnan to be someone who's structured, somebody who knows what he's doing, who knows his routine. So in fact, if your routine is disrupted, you might become unproductive, because you might not, you know, if you don't play football or go to the gym on the Tuesday, and then you don't play football on the Wednesday, and then you don't go to gym you don't go to Arabic class on the Thursday, all of a sudden you had like 3 big hits to your, you know.
I feel like crap. I feel like crap.
Exactly. And you know, this is huge. And I think anybody watching this, the standards you set yourself, and the way that I would like to put this is, if you respect yourself and you love yourself, you maintain the standards you set yourself. That in a nutshell is what it is. Because at the end of the day, if I don't love myself, I can't give everyone around me their happy. That's just the bottom line of it. Because if I'm not happy, how can I please my wife? If I'm not happy anyway. If I'm not happy with myself, exactly. If I'm not filled with my standards, how can I give my children, you know, and not be angry with them? And you said it perfectly. You know yourself that in the morning you have more patience, you can be more, you know, friendly, play with them a bit more, you have the energy for them. So therefore you give them their time when it's best for you. And that's the amazing parenting. Because when you come home, obviously you still see your children in the evening, but that time is just a bit of a wind down time for you, rather than the play. You know what I mean? And you know that. So rather than you not giving them any time at all, you say, no, I'm going to give you the morning. That's your time. Take as much of it as you want. So then when I go to work, I'm charged up. And actually, anybody watching this who's a parent, and I actually give this advice literally to a client of mine the other day. I said, go and spend more time with your family and your kids, because that will charge up your batteries in an amazing way. So the fact that you start your days like that, that might be the secret tactic to why you're so successful in life as well, my friend. MashaAllah. Okay, bro. MashaAllah, it's been a very insightful conversation. And the final sort of serious question of today is what I like to call the value bomb. So it's where you, Mr. Adnan, will give us the most valuable piece of advice that you can give us, inshallah. And inshallah, I mean, us, the viewers, can benefit immensely from your value bomb. So please.
You'd think I'd have thought about this and put a bit more effort into it, but a lot of what I've said is how I judge myself in my life, and you know, the standards I work to and stuff. But I'd say to everyone, you know, if you're gonna try achieving anything, have consistency, because motivation comes and goes. Like sometimes, you know, you wanna be hench, you wanna lose weight, there's loads of motivations you can have. You wanna have a massive business, you wanna learn a language, or you wanna do anything. Motivation will come and go. You're not always motivated. At the times when I come into my office and I think I can't be asked for this business, I'm just gonna get a job. There's times where I go to the gym and I think, what's the point? Like, you know, I don't look like the guy over there who's lifting, 100 kg in his chest. What's the point? But consistency and just showing up is the biggest attribute you can have. Like, you won't notice that 0.1 millimeter gain you've made, but you'll notice the centimeters and the 5 centimeters and the 10 centimeters. You won't notice the one client that's paying you 50 quid a month, but you realize the 10 that are paying you 500. So I'd say don't do anything based on motivation. Do it based on consistency and discipline, because that only then will you actually get anywhere. You won't get anywhere by one day thinking, I want to smash something now, having 10 pre-workouts and going down to the gym. But by turning up 3 times a week over the course of 6 months, you'll see a difference. And it's the same with your business. You know, if you open up an e-commerce business today because you think you can sell jewelry better than the next man, you know, if you're still doing it 6 months later and you're showing up every day and doing the same advertising, the same sales, then you'll see a benefit. You won't see a benefit from once or twice. I think that's a problem nowadays a lot of people have, because we've not got the same patience we used to have. You know, we've not got that waiting for the rice field to grow over the summer and then, you know, taking it down before the winter. We expect results like this. Today, I expect the results yesterday. You know, Amazon Prime, you order it today, it'll be there by tomorrow, if not in a few hours. We don't have patience. And so we expect to see results instantly. But I'd say, you know, have consistency, slow yourself down, have some patience, and see what you can achieve over a longer period of time, rather than, you know, I want something now, and why isn't a year by next week?
I think it's super important. And I think, obviously, you know, I resonate with that a lot. I mean, even just, you know, as a perfect example for anybody that keeps up with Muslim Amir, you know, people need to see you and get to know you and get familiar with you, whether it's, through, advertising, whether it's through just being aware, through your knowledge, through sharing wisdom, through going to the gym, whatever it is, you do need to be consistent. And you don't, if you, the key point here is, I think, from what you've said, is if you're passionate enough about something, then you'll be able to be consistent with it. I mean, you need to find your why. For example, with me, before coming to get married, I remember I was in the gym, I was working hard, and this old man next to me saw me working out. And he saw how hard I was working. And as soon as I finished my set, he went, "There's got to be a reason." And I was like, "Yeah, there is, mate. Getting married." And subhanAllah, now my why isn't as strong as it was before. So I've gained weight. So subhanAllah, and subhanAllah, all that hard work that I was putting in now was gone to waste because I messed up the consistency.
Yeah, that's it. You didn't put that pattern.
Exactly. And if I maintained it, even if it was just a 5-minute HIIT workout in the morning, just 5 minutes would have maintained the physique that I'd gained. But, consistency is super important. So inshallah, Jazakallah khair for that amazing value bomb. Consistency definitely wins the race. And what we're going to do now, inshallah, we're going to have a quick fire round questions. And then we'll have a chance for you to tell everyone where to find you, inshallah. So are you ready for the quick fire round questions?
I'll do my best.
Okay, so we have first question: burger or pizza kind of guy?
I'm lactose intolerant. I can't have enough pizza, so burgers all the way.
Oh, subhanallah. Yeah, burgers aren't a bad shout. Why don't you have it with what's it called, vegan cheese?
I do. It's just not the same, is it? It's just because my dad's got a takeaway. I take my own cheese down. I make the pizza, but it's not the same. You see it coming out all pale and that. But I love burgers. I love a good, half-pound beef burger. Sometimes I even get that beef burger with a fried chicken slice on top. Oh, beautiful.
MashaAllah.
I go to the gym so I can treat myself.
Exactly. No, that's good. Good. All right, socks before or after trousers when getting ready?
After, man, after. Who put some on before?
No, some people are weird like that, mate. Inshallah, the viewers don't get offended by that. What's it called? Do you brush your teeth before or after breakfast in the morning?
After. Anyone that has kids will realize even getting around to brushing your teeth in the morning sometimes is a luxury. Like they do. I used to always be a wake up, shower, teeth, go down and crack on with your day kind of guy. But ever since I've had kids, I don't wake up in peace anymore. Like I wake up to one of them slapping me in the face or one of them pulling the blanket off me. Like I wake up to chaos now. And so grabbing them, going downstairs with them whilst my wife makes breakfast. And then, that whole morning routine is absolutely up in the air now. So then it's morning routine, then brush my teeth and head out for work. So that's a luxury in itself that I get that 5 minutes of peace in the morning. Alhamdulillah.
Subhanallah. May Allah make your children the coolness of your eyes, Ya Rab. Do you prefer movies or series?
Series, just because they go on for longer. I hate that pause you have after a series finishes where you don't know what to do with yourself anymore.
Oh, that's why I always wait. Especially like, I'm like that, and I prefer when the whole season comes out, then I watch it all in one go.
Yeah.
I like to do it that way. Do you prefer personal development books or novels?
I haven't read a novel since I was like 16. I think that was probably Harry Potter or something. I have personal development all the way. Like I've got my bookshelf there, and it's only something I started recently in the last few years since I had my own business. And a lot of them. I used to think I knew everything when I used to work in employment, but since I opened up my own business, I realized there's a world of knowledge out there that's trapped in these books. You can gain the knowledge someone's acquired over a lifetime in a few hours just by reading their book. So I'm a big advocate for self-development books.
That's amazing. Very, 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 very valuable truth. Are you ketchup or mayo kind of guy, or do you prefer different?
Both. Ketchup, mayonnaise at the bottom, ketchup at the top.
Amazing. And final question today: do you prefer being a business owner or an employee?
Business owner the whole way. But as I've stressed in here, it's a path that needs to be trodden. You need to do employment, learn from your managers, your senior managers, from the business owners, and then take it from there. Don't jump that gun too early.
Jazakallah khair, bro. Amazing conversation. So much insight, so much value. It's been absolutely amazing having you here. Do you want to just let everyone know where they can find you, how to access you? Maybe if you want to quickly let them know what IFS Accounting does, in case anybody watching this might require your service.
I'd say, in all honesty, I'm the most straight-talking, honest accountant you'll ever see. Like it's not a sales-based approach. I'm not trying to sell to you. if you're setting up a business and you don't know what you're doing or how to structure it or what taxes you're going to pay, feel free to drop me a message on LinkedIn. Like if you're watching this, you've probably seen me on LinkedIn. You know, my statuses that people seem to enjoy, even though it's just gibberish from the top of my head. Find me on LinkedIn. You can, message me anytime with any questions. I'm very responsive like that. I try helping as many people as I can.
MashaAllah, and I vouch for Brother Adnan. Amazing brother, very, very good content, very, very funny guy, and is an expert in his field. Allah Mazad Barik. Brother Adnan Sajjad, Jazakallah khair for coming on today. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. You're welcome, Wayyak. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode just as much as I have. And inshallah, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Speak Sense podcast. I've been Usama Musa Amir. Subhanak ya Rabbi, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.